Oh, hello. Look who showed up as soon as I hit record. What you looking at? It's just the wind. It's very windy, Turbo. Calm down. Everything's fine. Very windy. I came outside because it's garden tour time and everything is just a disaster. 40-mile-an-hour winds last night, which isn't that bad, but it well, it did some things. Kind of. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't actually walked around and looked. I just came outside and I sat down on the steps. I don't really know why. This is just where I ended up. Hey, what's up, garden friends? Jeff here. How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm great. It's a beautiful day. Gorgeous day. 86 today. Basically November. That's crazy. So much warmth. It's so nice. That doesn't happen very often. Haven't done a lot out here lately because, I've been doing stuff, prepping the grow space more than anything. And with this warmer weather, I guess you would call it an awkward stage. I think I talked about that in the last video. Things are in between, in a transitional spot. Like I still have a lot of, well, really most of the tropicals out here. I moved a few aeroids in. Pulled the heliconias. That was in last week's vlog because they had some frost damage from a couple of weeks ago. But otherwise, I can't really set up for the fall, winter, early spring stuff until I move all the tropicals in, and I'm not moving them in until I absolutely have to. It's not time yet. They don't need to go in. And from looking at the forecast, it's looking like it might be, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks till they need to go in. Might be mid to late November. I'm not sure yet, but there have been some changes for those of you who only tune in for the garden tours. Some stuff has happened. Got the windmill palm back over here. The big palms, they went back to storage. And threw some more plants over here that are more cold hardy. Got the oleander over here. The hydrangeas haven't been planted yet because I've just been waiting for rain, but it's looking like we might have 4 or 5 days of rain coming up, which would be amazing because I think they said we're at like 5/100ths of an inch for the month of October. Something ridiculous like that. And I don't know, I don't want to go popping the perennials in the ground. Down in this area specifically is where I have a bunch of plants I want to put in the ground, but it just doesn't seem like a good idea yet. Back there by the fence and areas you can't see right now because the plants are blocking them, but the sprinklers don't hit very well over there. It's hard to get the hose over there to water. So I had planned on, actually woke up today thinking, oh, I'll go ahead and plant those things. That's what we'll do in today's vlog. And then remembered, no. You're supposed to do a garden tour Wednesday. Totally forgot about that. So a video about agaves, that's what should be out. And here we are, almost 3 minutes in, just sitting here rambling, talking about life. That's not really a garden tour. I should probably get up. It's just I needed to make sure y'all got the warning. It's a disaster, I think. I haven't been down over there yet, but from looking around up here, things aren't looking all that hot. Oh, lone survivors over here. I want to say Super Petunia, not Super Petunia, not a proven winners plant. The Mayan Sunset, Calabrax or something's Petunias. Pretty sure it's a Calabrax. Maybe a Petcoa, whatever you want to call it. The majority of my planted just did not hold up to the heat and the drought this year. I had them planted in all different planters, all over the place. Most of them melted when it got really hot out. Can I help you? You're right in my face. I'm trying to talk to the YouTube people, Turbo. He's waiting for permission. Like, seriously, no space at all. Come on, you want to go swim? Is that what this is? Go swim. You're free. Go on, have a good time. It's warm. Yeah, good boy. You can do it. Go swim. Get in the pool. I already told you twice. You can do it. Go on. Go swim. Yep. You're free. You still have permission. There you go. You can do it. There you go. All right. Bye, Turbo. Sorry about that. He was going to be in my face until I gave him permission. I know what was going on there. Some wind damage over here to some of the plants. Y'all haven't even seen these yet. I have some exciting plants over here that are, I don't know, they'll be out in a video sometime between now and March. Something like that, but they're not doing so great when had their way. It's mostly bananas and then this ginger over here, so they're plants that will recover. I already had to cut some of these back. Some of them were already cut back. Look at how beautiful, despite the nature going on here, the brokenness on top, how gorgeous this ginger is. Look at the variegation. This is a Hydroponics, I believe is called Vanilla Ice. I don't believe that's what it's called. That's definitely what it's called. That variegation, it's so good. So good. Y'all know I also have another variegated Hydroponics that's called Tahitian Flame that I have always been obsessed with. It's one of my favorites, and I think that this one might be better as far as variegation goes. Not might be, it's definitely better as far as the variegation is concerned. It's very colorful. The whites, the creams, the light greens, the dark greens, it has it all. The Tahitian flame, which I'll show you at some point here. Maybe I'll move to it next since that would make the most sense. It's a much more, I don't want to say subtle variation, but it's nothing like this. Going to be holding all these over until next spring. So I need to get these potted up into some 10-inch containers. I think that would be probably the next size up to go with, maybe 8-inch. For some of these and overwinter them in the grow space. They'll be going in the ground in the springtime. The cordyceps, look at them. They did great this year. Got all kinds of growth on them. They're really big. These are the harlequins. At least that's what they were sold to me as. And I think that they probably are. They're giving me kiwi vibes, but they're also pretty big for kiwis. They're all very similar, but look at those leaves. Gorgeous foliage. I'm going to bring these in, but I'm going to do it differently this year than in years past. I've talked about the cordyceps fruticosus being problematic. We'll put it that way. They can be problematic. They are pest magnets, and it is so hard to get the bugs out of them. In the grow space, that is. In an area where I really have to be careful with the neems because I have the pond in there that has fish in it, and neem is not safe for amphibians or aquatic life. It can be dangerous for reptiles and birds too. I know it's touted as being very safe, but it can be dangerous to a lot of animals. So I have to be careful with the neems. And I think maybe it's partially because of just their growth habit. It's really hard to get the sprays down and everywhere, and they always end up covered in mealybugs every single year. And then come maybe January, more like February, I say forget it, and I just toss them because it's ridiculous trying to keep up with them. But I was thinking maybe I'll just toss them in my basement. Let them chill in the poorly lit, cool, dark area. They can die down to being just sticks. It's not a dormancy. I was going to say they can take a dormancy. They can have a dormant rest period that's brief. So a couple of months in the basement, and they'll be separated from all the other plants. So hopefully the chance of mealybugs will be much less that way. And then I can bring them up into the grow space, say around March probably. Things will be a lot warmer, and it'll really get them charged up and going, and they'll just look like sticks, but then hopefully by May to June they'll be flushed back out and looking pretty much like this again. That's the plan. It could change. I don't know. I may just spread them around the house and grow them as houseplants. They make very good houseplants in the sense that during the winter seasons when the day lengths are shorter, they don't need an awful lot of water. It's more a matter of just trying to avoid the brown tips and keeping them free of spider mites. The mealybugs are my issue in the grow space. In the house, it's spider mites. But spider mites aren't the worst with these because these are still small enough that I can just take them to a shower and blast them off. That happens. So anyways, that's what's been going on in my brain with the cordyceps. I want to make sure that they got the attention because I don't talk about them that often in the garden tours. They're just kind of there. But they've been so beautiful, it seems like a shame to not give them some attention. I mean, look at that leaf. Look at that. That's a stunner. Absolutely beautiful plant. Now, I do have a plan for this area. It's just like I said, I can't do it yet because I haven't moved the tropicals in. But once all the tropicals are inside, I'll be left with the seashell planter over here. There's another smaller one right there that has some sempervivums in it. You see them down there? The hens and chicks. They've got some mess on them, but those are mostly evergreen. And then I have this big blue Tommy Bahama pot, and there are a couple others that are smaller than that in this area. So all this will be gone. It'll just be a few planters. I'm thinking I might put a sugar and spice arb in this one, and then in those other two, maybe some of the Everrio carex, that beautiful limey colored grass, just for a pop of color. I've also been toying around with the idea, and hear me out on this one. I know the gardening community, y'all aren't going to like this, but I'm thinking maybe, possibly doing bamboo in this container. And that's not the issue. That's not the issue. The issue is that I might do fake bamboo. Someone reached out and said they'd send it to me for free. I'm like, well, if it's going to be free and they say it's UV resistant, and in the pictures it looked pretty good for the winter months, I don't know. I don't think I would mind that. It's just a little something different out here that might add some contrast. And if I hate it, then, well, I didn't lose any money there, right? I can give it to somebody else who doesn't mind fake plants. The thing with the fake bamboo, it doesn't bother me as much as a lot of other fake plants because the canes are bamboo, they're just dried, and then they have the plasticky foliage on them or whatever they're making the UV resistant ones out of, I assume plastic of some kind. But I think that, I don't know, it might look nice having something over here that's not just, you know, a thuja. Some more texture and color with bamboo. It's more exotic looking. It's just something I'm thinking about. Roeos did great this year. I had those underplanted, not underplanted. These are just in a container that I had sitting in the Adenidia palm that was over here. Pulled it out, and now it's sitting in the container underneath the windmill palm. I thought I had 2 of those. I need to dig around and find the other one because I think it would look nice if that were more full. The windmill palm is over here for right... Don't know why that light didn't turn off on its own. Adenidia palm was here. Swapped that out with the windmill. Wasn't sure if that was going to work out because the windmill just got repotted not that long ago. And I wasn't certain about it being rooted into its container. And you really got to kind of toss and turn and jumble things around to get them back into this corner. But it was all rooted in. It was stable, didn't move around inside the containers. That worked out really well because I don't think I could have gotten any other palms over here in this corner. Have the mule palms over here, which are looking pretty good. A little scraggly, but that's just, you know, sometimes how they look. They're at an awkward size, kind of. I think it's mostly just they need to be repotted. Really, that's probably the main reason they're looking a little bit scraggly. But I don't think that those would have worked over there in that corner. I think it would have looked kind of odd. They need to get a little bit more height on them first. I think it just would have been a lot of fronds in the face. So this is all what I've done to replace the queen and everything else that was over here, the Robellini and tropicals with the more cold hardy tropicals. I think I could probably keep these out here into the teens. The mules I'm going to be more delicate with this year because they didn't get the repot that I meant to give them in the springtime. So I'm probably going to move them in around 25, or if there's any chance of ice or snow, just to be safe. They may end up spending a lot of time in the grow space this year. That's probably going to be better for them. Oh, the Tahitian flame. I forgot. This is what I was supposed to be talking about next. Look at, so you see the difference in the variegation? It's still a beautiful plant, and I absolutely love it, but it's nowhere near as intense as that vanilla ice. I do think that this is bigger than the vanilla. Oh, are we going to get another flower? Oh, that's exciting. I cannot believe it's almost November and some of these things are still flowering. Need to remember that. Don't want to let this take any frost, although it already has taken a little bit of frost and it seems okay. The variegation, it's just not as extreme, but I do think that this one is larger. I mean, obviously it's larger than that one I just got, the male, but I think that the vanilla ice only goes about 48 to 60 inches. And this one right here, well, I guess it's probably about the same because it's in a container, so it's about 60 inches, but you know, just it feels more robust. The flowers on this one, it has just finished flowering. This started flowering September 18th, I believe is when I saw the first little flower pop out from inside of this inflorescence. This thing has been in flower ever since, up until, I want to say yesterday or the day before. So over a month of flowering out of one inflorescence. That is so impressive and makes me love this plant even more than I already did. And it smelled good too. It was a very sweet smell, almost like a gardenia with like a hint of honey, maybe. That's how probably, yeah, a little fruity too. It's a nice contrast to the, back up, flaming torches, which I love because they are the most cold hardy that I've been able to find out here for the gardens, but their flowers are very short-lived. Luckily, they are vigorous, so there's typically a succession of flowers. Do y'all hear that echo? Is it just me? My voice is like bouncing off the walls. I don't like it. We'll talk about the bigger patch over here. The Tahitian flames, right, you can see, very big, very robust, and they'll do a succession of blooms. So these are pretty much done, but I'm nearly certain, yeah, there's still some in the very back. You might be able to see them right there. See, there's an inflorescence coming up. There's one behind it that's still blooming. It's basically November. By the time this video comes out, it will be November. It's Halloween, so yeah, it's the last day of October. The Tahitian flames that I had back here, same deal, right? So you get a short-lived flower out of them, but you still have the succession. So here we are 2 months after they started blooming, and they're still putting up flowers, just it has to be on newer growth that took longer to come up. It would be nice if their flowers would last for more than a week, maybe 10 days might be more accurate. But now that I've experienced a full month of blooming from the Tahitian flame down there, getting kind of spoiled. I'm not as impressed by the flames over here, not as much as I used to be. Flaming torches. Did I call them flames? I think I did. Flaming torch, that's what this one's called. That's why I always get them confused, because this is the flaming torch, that other very good one was the Tahitian flames, those names. They jumble around in my head. Moved an oleander over here that got cut back. I believe it was in a video a few months ago. Did a heavy, heavy prune on it. and it just has not wanted to bloom again for me. And I think that's because it's not getting enough sun. I had moved it over to this corner where I have some palms and things. Oh, okay. All right, everything's fine. Nothing blew over. Some palms and things over there in that corner that I've been trying to reestablish because they were shipped with basically no roots on them. I'll talk about those in a minute. There's a lot of sun over there. And so just now starting to get some more flowers out of it. It's a little bit late. Don't know if anything's going to happen with that, especially now that it's being more shaded by the windmill up here, but that's okay. It still looks nice. I like the shape of the foliage. The growth habit on this is nice enough. The berry white hydrangeas, still liking them, but again, I can't put them in the ground yet. I mean, I guess I could. It just it makes me so nervous with this drought. Hopefully sometime in the next few days, though, if that forecast stays the same, they're saying we're going to get the rain, I'll be able to get these planted up in the garden. This wind, I hope it's not too bad on the microphone. Gosh, everything's all blown over. What a mess. I'm not going to bother picking it up. Why would I? It's just going to get blown over again. That's not good for the plant. The hydrangeas I was talking about, they're going to go down here towards the end of this hill. They go 6 to 8 feet high and wide. So it'll be a nice wall of beautiful, kind of a deep fuchsia flower on them. I have a calycanthus that's going to go over here in this corner. And I think that that's going to be about it for that spot. I have some little hollies that I might stick in there, but I'm going to wait and see. It's, like I said, it's hard for me to think about the fall gardening when it's 86 degrees outside, and then the forecast looks like it's going to cool off and be more typical fall weather, but still no frost that I'm seeing in the next 2 weeks. That could change by the time the video comes out, but as of right now, things are still in a place where they should keep growing. The tropicals, that is. So it's, like I said, it's hard to focus on the other things right now. The hibiscus got blown over. Yeah, that's okay. There wasn't anything to talk about with that one anyways. It got repotted, and it's been happy ever since. That's pretty much the only update I can give. Hibiscus are still blooming. Looking great. Hibiscus trees still doing their thing. That hibiscus fertilizer, it's over here. I can show it to you. Excuse me, Turbo. Let me get through here. This fertilizer that I used this year, the Nelson's, this stuff was fantastic. I wasn't sure about it because with continuous releases, you just never know if you're actually getting anything. But my hibiscus this year, using this on them, they have all been so happy, healthy. They've had nice dark green foliage, the good sized leaves that aren't, overly grown. They're not droopy. Everything is good. There's some yellowing on this one. That's because we're in a drought. Humidity's low. It's been hard to keep that one hydrated. And they've been flowering consistently, which is just, they've just been so happy and so healthy. And it's so easy. I like this continuous release because I can just sprinkle it on there. I'm doing about every 4 to 6 weeks, just a little sprinkle on top, water it in, and that's it. They just keep doing their thing and thriving. What's not to love about that? Areca palm's looking good, as always. One of my favorite plants out here. Wondering how well that's going to fit in the grow space this year. Might be a tight fit. It didn't do a ton of growing. It's reached a size where it hasn't by any means maxed out. Oh, what? That's a horrible sound. Jeez. Hasn't maxed out by any means, but it's kind of reached a point where it's not exploding in growth as much as it used to be. But I still think some of those trunks may not make it. I might have to cut a couple of them off if I can't stand this thing upright, because they're going to start hitting the ceiling eventually. That's okay. It'll keep putting out new growth from down below. I'm just happy that it's been such a easy plant to have around as far as all the other palms are concerned. This is the one that's been the most reliable for me, and I don't know why I don't buy more of them because of that. I really should. I think I talked about this before. I don't often see them for sale anymore outside of, they'll be in a 10-inch container with just a few really scrawny seedlings, basically, and usually 50 to 60 bucks. I'm not doing that. This whole thing was 65 bucks, and it was in a 15-gallon container, and it already had a couple of clear trunks on it. It wasn't much, maybe 6 inches. But I just can't imagine spending that kind of money on one that's so small. If I could find one that was... I don't think I'm going to find one that has this much trunk on it that isn't in a 25 or 30-gallon container. But if I could find one in a 15-gallon, it needs to be 15-gallon because that's what would fit these containers on each side of this hot tub the best, then I'd get another one. It's something I'm going to be keeping my eyes out for because, like I said, it's been such a fuss-free plant. I mean, I shouldn't say fuss-free, but compared to a lot of the other palm trees that end up being infested with spider mites or they get crown rot really easily, this one, it gets spider mites, it gets mealybugs, it gets scale sometimes, but when I treat it, they go away, which doesn't happen out on my other palm trees. And it's so vigorous too, which is something else I really enjoy about it, that I can give it a hefty prune if I need to. If it does have some kind of infestation on it, I can trim off basically everything except for the spears, wash those trunks off, flush the soil, and it starts to flush back out. And within like 6 to 8 weeks, it looks good as new. That's so great, especially compared to some palms like Adenidias. No, thank you. No, thank you. That looks great, doesn't it? So these over here, the Spring Grove arbs, that's what sits in these containers for the winter months. They need to be backfilled. That's why they're blowing around. They were down there in these 2 blue containers on each side of the pathway there. And I just moved them over there so there's some evergreen interest for the winter months. These over here, these are the Vicia palms. So these came from Broward Palms. I did a video on them last, I don't know, June, July, something like that. They were delivered basically, okay, so they were kind of bare root. You could say there was some soil around the roots, but you could see where the roots had been chopped. So they were dug and then shipped, which is okay. I think it said something about that on the website. I knew that that's what I was going to be getting. Same thing with this nice coconut back here, really big coconut. Thing did a good amount of growing. They had no roots on them, so they were back there where it's more shady, where that croton blew over, and this is where I moved them, as I was talking about when I was thinking that they could handle more sunlight. They've been doing really well. So far, it looks like I've gotten, 2, 3 new growths out of each one of these. This one right here, it's just been one, and then there's another one starting to unfurl down there. I'm starting to get some trunk on them, some clear trunk, and they're so tiny. I love that. I mean, it's not ideal. I've talked about this at nurseries before. When I see a scrawny Adenidia palm, I want it. And I don't know why, because that's not what they're supposed to look like. They're supposed to have nice, big, thick, girthy trunks on them. But I love a scrawny trunked palm tree. So if they want to start trunking instead of having that crown fill out and waiting a couple of years, I'm okay with it. The reason I got the Vicias is because, according to the people who store my palm trees during the winter time, they have said that they're having better luck with the Vicias as far as winter storage goes, and the Gossia palms as far as them being alternatives to an Adenidia. The only reason the Adenidia is the main one that they have to find an alternative for is because it's the most popular. They're cheap. They sell them everywhere, so they have a lot of clients who have Adenidia palms, and they're saying that the Vicias have been doing better for them. And then, so I started doing some reading on the Vicia, and they are a little bit more cold hardy and more tolerant of drought. Not saying that you should have them in an environment where things are droughty. That's not the word. Arid? That's probably what I should say. Not as demanding of high humidity as the Adenidias. Adenidias, they just want it warm and humid at all times, whereas these, they're saying, are not as finicky. So I thought I'd get a couple, spend the summer getting them to root out into these containers and grow them for a few years and see how they do in the grow space, because eventually I'm going to need some alternatives to my Adenidias, like the ones that these got blown over too. Well, the ones that typically go in these Miami planters, they're going to be too big in a couple of years to go in those pots. So I'm thinking that these over here might be a good alternative. I've also got a couple of king palms that I'm going to be experimenting with this winter. And by experimenting, I mean I just want to see how they perform in the grow space in comparison to, like, say, the Eureka palm that I was talking about, how it's fairly low fuss. As far, I talked about all that, all the stuff that goes into that. Want to see how that's going to be with some of these others. The coconuts, I know that that's not going to be the reality with them. They're going to be a pain in my butt all winter long, and that's okay. I am still very impressed with how well this one rooted into this container. I mean, it didn't take it long at all. I was thinking that this thing was a goner, really, because it didn't have much as far as roots are concerned, period, when it got here. But this coconut that was shipped to me with, like I said, basically no roots at all, it's done more growing for me than some of my other coconuts that were perfectly fine and established in their containers, but, well, suffered some damage. So I actually could probably trim this old stuff off now. It's got enough new stuff on it. But I don't know, if there's chlorophyll, I don't want to take it away from a coconut, because the coconuts can be very slow growing. They don't have to be. I don't know what the trick is. It's like a roll of the dice, it seems. I could grow 10 of them in identical conditions, and there will always be a couple that grow really fast and a few that grow really slow and some that just stay normal. That's a tangent that wasn't necessary. It's supposed to be a garden tour and talk about the garden. All I've done is talk about palm trees. I'm sorry. Actually, not all that used to being able to do garden tour with all the tropicals out this time of year. It's a little bit difficult to focus on what to even go over without being redundant. But I guess that's really kind of the whole point here, though. This is going to be a last look for the tropicals. I would imagine it would be mind-blowing if the bananas and the impatiens and everything we're seeing right here in front of me, if all that stuff is still up and standing for the November garden tour, that would be very surprising. It's happened before, but usually by the week of Thanksgiving, we have an ice storm or something that knocks everything down. And the last 5 years, we've had something by mid-October that knocks everything down. So this extra 2 weeks to a month is what it's looking like. That's been really nice. Been really nice, even though the annuals they're not done yet, but they're getting pretty tired. These impatiens right here, I don't even know how to describe how big they are. They're freaking huge. They're supposed to go, I think, 24 to 30 inches by 24 to 30 inches, and these are easily 3 feet high. These right here, what are they? The Red Mountain? Red Candy? Yeah, Red Candy, Pink Candy, Electric Orange. But you can see, they're starting to fizzle out, right? They didn't get a mid-season cutback because they didn't get planted until fairly late in the season. And I think even if they had a mid-season cutback, they'd probably still be looking about like this by now. They've had some frost. They've had a lot of dog running through them, too. That dogs, especially my sister's dog. My sister comes over, brings her dogs. For some reason, they love to dart in and out of these things. You can see right here, right there, and right there, they go through and rip them up, which isn't great, but at least they're having a good time. They're annuals, they're cheap. So that's something I get all that torn up about. I really did enjoy the, you would say lime zinger. I'm thinking about the xanthosomas, the sweet potato vines in front of this year. I might try and scoot this all back some next year. So I'm going to be doing different things with the bananas next year. I have a plan set in place. I think I'm going to be pulling up all the bajus and trying some more special bananas. And when I do that, I will have some more space in the garden too, because the bajus take up a lot of space. They spread very, very wide. That's what these are back here, Musa baju. Baju, people say it differently. The Japanese fiber banana. Basically the most cold hardy one. There's some debate around that with some others, but I'm going to be trying Musa yunanensis and Balbisiana out here because they have a tighter clump to them and they get much bigger. I've grown them before and I absolutely love them. I would like to replace these with Musa Saba, but I can never find them for sale at a price that I think is acceptable. For some reason, the price on those Sabas is just skyrocketed. Sabas get a lot bigger, but the Balbisiana and the yunanensis, they hold a tighter clump, a nice round clump that gets massive. And I think that would be more fitting for this spot. If I'm going to be going to the trouble of throwing like 30 bags of mulch on top of a clump every year, then why not make it a clump of bananas that are actually only marginally cold hardy? Because the bajus, I don't really have to mulch them, right? They'll come back every year, regardless of being mulched. I'm in 6B, 7A. Now that this clump is big and established, I will always mulch them as long as I have them. So even though I plan on digging them up, I'm sure I'll still throw a few bags of mulch over there. But it just seems like I'm spending a lot of time trying to overwinter these when I don't really need to do that. And if I'm going to go to all that effort, then why not do it with something that's a little bit more grand and special, right? Don't get me wrong, I love the bajus. This clump might stay. I don't know, because I do like this clump more than the other. And it's easy for me to hate on them. I'm not hating on them, but it's easy for me to not be as excited about them this year because I didn't get a ton of growth out of them because we didn't have rain and the irrigation out here was busted for like 6 weeks. It took a long time to get it up and running again, and it's just hand watering bananas. It's difficult to do. So I think that's the main reason I didn't get a ton of growth out of them. They're usually a good 6 feet taller than they are right now, but I don't know. I'm okay with it. They're okay. That's what I was going to say. I'm okay with it. They're okay. It would just make more sense in my head to be putting those efforts forward to something different. So if those bajus are going to go, then that means I can scoot the annuals back a little bit further next year and have more of the pathway opened up. That was the only thing that I wasn't crazy about with these sweet potato vines here, was that they really grow over the patio, so I've had to come through and chop them back. And then as the impatiens grew bigger, they made it so I couldn't cut them back as far as these impatiens are sticking way out over the patio too. The patio goes back to there. So, I don't know. It still looked good. I liked it. I'll do it again. Just think I need to plant them back further. Over here, star of the show, my favorite plant of the year, favorite new perennial of the year. This is the Pharaoh's Dream Colocasia. Look at that leaf. Isn't it stunning? I'd get closer, but I have a sopping wet dog that's standing in front of me for absolutely no reason. I don't know why he's here. Hey, Turbo, you want to go do something? Go swim. Go get in the pool. Yeah, go swim. My favorite. Absolutely just blown away with the coloration and variegation on this plant. Mostly because it has the hype from Brian's Botanicals. They're the ones who grew this. Is supposedly being extremely cold hardy. If that's the case, this will probably end up being my favorite of the cold hardy tropicals. Because that color. I can't think of anything else with this kind of color and vigor to it that is hardy all the way into zone 6. Right? The Bikini Teeny Colocasias, they're great, fantastic, but color-wise, I mean, this is just, it's better. It's almost shocking to look at. It looks like somebody took especially this one, since it only has the purple on half. Every single leaf that comes up until they reach a certain size has varying levels of variegation on them. Of course, going from less to more, and then the more sun you have, the better that variegation is going to be. These were shipped out really tiny. I think these were about this big when I got them in the mail. So this is as big as I was able to get them this year. I did make sure to fertilize them very regularly. That's just, it's the best you can do when they're sent out so tiny. But they're, oh, why did I do that? They're fantastic. That's all I really have to say about that. I have another clump over here I can show you that got less sun, but had a nice spread to it. You can't really see much else that's over here because everything has grown so much. So once all the annuals and everything are out of here, we'll be able to get back here and see the sable minors again. I'm going to have a lot of stuff to prune back between the gingers and the cannas. I was talking in another video about maybe ditching the cannas next year. Not ditching them, but probably just relocating them to somewhere else in the yard, because there are other types I'd like to grow. If I can get my hands on the pink sunburst cannas, those are my favorite. I would love to have a clump of those back there, but I don't know. I can never find them. I see them for sale, and they're always sold out. So that's something that I'm trying to keep in mind this winter, is like to just keep checking different places, see if I can find them, and try and get them from a few sources. I know, beggars can't be choosers, but the few times I have ordered pink sunburst cannas, I've gotten them, and they were just Tropicanas. They weren't the pink sunburst, so there's also that I have to keep in mind. I really do like the big red musifolias. I don't think they actually are musifolia, but they're musifolia-ish as far as the cannas go. They have a lot of similar growth habits to them, but not quite as big, a deeper red foliage. They call them the red banana canna. They go by different names. I love them, but they're just too big for the spot. If they would stay back against the wall, it'd be okay, but they don't want to. They want to move forward. So you can't really see out the garden window. They're shading the hiddekiums that I have behind everything. So I think that something that maxes out around 6 to 7 feet would be better. These things right here, they push about, I'd say 14 to 16 feet. They're very, very, very big and still flowering also. Can we talk about that? They're still flowering and it's November at this point. Never experienced that before. Is this what it's like to live down south and you just get to have your plants keep growing into the fall time? This is weird. I'm not used to it. They look good, don't they? They're beautiful, but it's just they keep wanting to push out this direction. I came in and I pulled and cut back all the ones that were right here, and they filled back out. That's what they do. That's why I was thinking a canna that only goes 6 to 7 feet, that would come up to right about here probably. And the windows, you'd still be able to see over them. I think that would be nice. Also, we should probably take a moment to appreciate the orchids. Look at them. Sherry baby in all of her glory. So many flowers. It smells amazing in here. Mini fowl doing its thing. All the others looking pretty good in the back. They've been in bloom for months. They've been very happy in this window. They're gonna have to be forgiving of me because it's not gonna be that long until I clear this window out and start setting up for Christmas in a few weeks. I'm gonna try and find a way to keep the Sherry baby around though. I mean, this is Christmas colored, right? It's red with the white. It smells too good. I can't pull it out. Anthurium looking great, by the way. This video came out, didn't it? I'm pretty sure it did. Counter's a mess. You can't really see the pot all that well. I put this Asconcentrum in here. It's a mini Vandaceous type orchid. It hadn't done much for me all summer. I popped that thing in there and it put up a new leaf within like a week. So I think that pairing is going to work out pretty well. We don't really need to be in here. I just wanted to show the window on what I was talking about maybe having a lower layer of canvas would look better. We can go back outside. Gosh, that feels so weird stepping outside and having all this humidity and warmth. Today's nice and humid. It's been bone dry, but today there's some moisture in the air. It feels good. Little baby king palm, isn't it cute? I'm becoming a big fan of these king palms. Needle palms, nice and big. They loved the palm fertilizer. I used the Great Palm Fertilizer on them this year instead of Palm Gain, which is what I've always used. And I actually got a lot of growth out of them. I put Palm Gain on them and I never really noticed anything. I just keep doing it just because you're supposed to do it. But that Perfect Palm Fertilizer, I've gotten some really nice, big growth out of these things. They were also getting hit occasionally, I think maybe once or twice, with the Petunia feed from Jack's Classic, which is a pretty similar fertilizer to a liquid palm fertilizer. A lot of the micros and macros are roughly the same. Other needle palm down here that hasn't been all that vigorous, but it's because it was planted as a seedling. I actually think that I got a pretty good amount of growth out of this one too. Yeah, I'm finally starting to get some mature leaves on this. I think I planted this in, I don't know, 2010, maybe 2012. Could have been a little bit later than that, but it was a very long time ago. It was just a little stick. Like, there's nothing to it. Needle palms grow like snails, and still got a good amount of growth out of that one. I always regret having planted that one there, because whenever it becomes time to pull the mulch out from around the banana trees, you end up having your hands shredded by the needles on the trunk. Should have thought that one out. Should have been obvious. The name's in the description there, right? Or the hazard's in the description. In the name, needles. There's the heliconias. That's what frost does. It's okay. Was expecting it. The diamond head colocasia. So I've talked so many times about these, mostly about how I wanted to rip them out because they got too big for the spot and there were some spider mites on them. But I gave them a spray and they have been great ever since. They've been looking good. I haven't noticed any more spider mites on them. And now that the Alexander palm's gone, I'm really glad that they're here, because it's nice to have something over here. You can see they're thirsty right now. I don't really know what to do about that because I already watered over here. I don't want to overdo it, but I think they're just going to have to suck it up for another day. We get some rain. That might help them a lot. Might feel better with some natural water falling on them. And it's also been really windy, so they're kind of splayed out. But these things really impressed me this year. I wasn't sure how much I was going to like them, but they've got huge, like 6 feet tall. Low maintenance. There's a sprinkler head that kind of hit them, but not that much. I just planted them. They got hit with occasional fertilizer, but I wasn't like regimented about it, and they still got really big. They looked better. They looked much better than this. Now that the temperatures have cooled, they're starting to put out lots of tiny little leaves. That's totally normal. It's what they do. And the day lengths are getting a lot shorter too. So there's going to be some natural dieback with these. I think I may go ahead and dig this and lift it and dry store it for the winter time. When I say dry store it, I mean pull it up and clean the roots out as much as I can, and probably throw it in a cardboard box with some holes poked in it and stick it in my basement in the cool, dark, dry environment, and then just pop them back in the ground in the spring, or maybe put them in a pot sometime around March in the grow space and let them get started and just see what they do, because this is such a large clump at this point. This is easily, I'd say, 2.5 to 3 feet wide at the base. Seems like a shame to just let it die back with the frost, right? Well, I say that now, right? But just wait. Just wait. When it's time to actually move the plants in, it might just be pure chaos. Typically, when we have these really nice warm falls, what ends up happening is out of nowhere, there'll be a day where it just like plummets to 25 and then it warms back up again. But that one day at 25 is when you got to make sure you have all the tropicals moved in, and once they're in, they're staying in. So we'll just see how it's looking. Although a night of 25, 30 will kill that to the ground, but probably not kill the roots, because the ground will still stay warm for a little while. I've had some issues over here in this spot with a crepe myrtle that I cannot get to go away. I've been digging it up and trying to get it out of here every single year, but it just keeps coming back. The reason I don't want it over here is because it is an absolute magnet for whitefly, and that's because there's not enough sun over here. There used to be a lot of sun. It still is. It was a nachas. It used to get huge. It's beautiful. Then the trees over here grew, and now it's shaded. And because of that shade, the pests get drawn to it, and it's been a nightmare. So I need to come back here and cut that back, because I want to clear that out of the area while I still have some time. I don't want those things hopping onto the houseplants and going into the grow space. Although whitefly is not one of the hard ones to get rid of. Typically fairly easy inside. Out here on this particular plant, I have a lot of issues. Look at it. Look at it, it's just like swarming with aphids and whitefly, and yeah, I need to remember to get in here and chop that back down on the ground and get that stuff thrown out, because I can see it starting to move over here into the gingers, which did so well this year. I'm pretty sure these are maxed out at this point. You can see, I mean, this growth right here that's folded over from the wind, that's a good 4 feet. I'm gonna have to move these probably. I don't think they're getting quite enough sun. Just like I was talking about with the crepe myrtle, the trees have grown and they're just more shaded. So I need to probably lift these next spring and move them somewhere else where they'll get a lot of really bright morning sun and some afternoon shade. These are the Zingiber Myoga. Did my voice crack there? I think it did. Zingiber Myoga, White Feather, and Silver Arrow. And I am having trouble telling which is which because I think that some of their rhizomes have started to fuse together. And so I have kind of a weird variegation salad going on with some of these. They have really nice colorful foliage and a really great growth habit when they're getting the right amount of light. They are reputed by pretty much everyone to be a plant that you give morning sun and afternoon shade to. But in my experience, they can actually take a lot of sun so long as they're in a soil that drains well but holds on to some moisture. So basically, you don't let them dry out. They can take a lot of sun. So that's what I'm saying. I think I need to move these somewhere else. I don't know where else. I have to figure it out. But they're not doing their best over here. None of the ones that were planted right here, well, I guess I can't say none. But for the most part, what was over here didn't come up this year. Only what was further down the line where there's more sunlight, which makes some sense, right? They want the sun and they're not getting it as much over here. So they started doing their thing down that direction. There's still like some little bits that are coming up, but it's not much. Looks like the wind knocked the tie off of its pole. We're gonna need to get some cord and get that figured out. Love that tie. Look at that leaf. What a beautiful leaf. It's so big. Turbo, come over here. Show everybody how big the leaf is. Come on. Come on. Good boy, stay. That's close enough. You got to see. Big leaf. He's 110 pounds. That's a big leaf next to the big dog. When I was talking about the sugar and spice arb that I was going to pot up in that planter earlier, this is what I was talking about. So I had 2 of these that I was going to keep in these containers. That's where they were last winter, but lost one of them to the drought. Lost a couple of plants to the drought. This is one, and the other is this juniper, which isn't fully lost, but I mean, it's not looking good, right? I wouldn't say that it's thriving. Since I only have the one of these, I figured I'd put on a planter on the front porch and find something else to do with these 2 containers over here. Hit up some nurseries next week, hopefully, and check out what they have on clearance. Get something into those. The acanthus. Look at how big. This is so big and beautiful. I am so happy with how the acanthus did this year because, well, I didn't know, right? It was an experiment. I have never had a ton of luck with acanthus other than the spinosas, and I'm not crazy about the spinosas. I prefer the acanthus mollis, but they just do not do great with hot, humid summers. But this variety right here, oak leaf, it didn't skip a beat, and it was just planted this year. I mean, there was a lull in the growth in the middle of summer when it was really hot outside, but it had also just been planted too. So it basically sat still for several weeks, few months really, and then boom, lots of new growth. Really big, beautiful. Sorry, that was my foot on the rock here. Got a crunchy rock over here. Look at that. And these aren't even fully mature leaves either. The leaves that come out next year should be much bigger than this. Really glossy, shiny, tropical foliage. Stiff and upright. So pretty. This one over here, same deal. This is a 1 gallon plant. That one was a 5 gallon when it got planted. I planted them up in different sizes. I wanted to compare some, be like, is the juice worth the squeeze? I was going to say juice worth the squeeze, but really it's just, is it worth the cost? Because I think this was like 80 or 90 bucks, and this was 18 or 30. I don't know. It's been a while, but there's a huge price difference. And I don't know. I don't think that it is worth the extra cost. I do love that larger plant, but I'll show you some of the others as we walk around, and you'll see how big those got. And those were also in 1 gallon, or I think whatever we would call them, the number 2 containers. They still got really big. So it's just really a matter of waiting 1 year, and you'll have nice, big, full plants again for a much better price. Who are you? Camadria tepahilito? Never gonna be able to pronounce that properly. They've been doing great. Got these last year. They went through it trying to adjust and acclimate and get rooted into their new containers. They were shipped bare root, but they finally started to do their thing, have some inflorescence coming out. I say they because I have another one that I will show you here in just a second as soon as I'm done with the peel. I love the peeling. So satisfying getting there and doing a good peel on the base of these trunks. Oh, I love that. I liked these and wanted these because the reputation is that they make a fairly decent houseplant as far as palms are concerned, and they start to trunk at a very small size and they stay fairly small. And those are all really good things to have in a palm tree that you want to keep inside, right? Now here's the other one. Foliage, a little bit lighter green on it, but got a good amount of growth out of it this year. They sat still, didn't do much for a lot of the summer, but eventually they started to push out and start looking pretty good. Something that has done very well out here this year has been my Monstera Albo. Look at this thing. It just went absolutely nuts. It has roots sticking down there into that gravel. Basically turned itself into a bush. Gonna obviously need to get this up onto some stakes when I take this inside, right? I actually think it's probably time to start doing some chopping on this because it's getting not quite out of hand, but to a point where I'd like to do some cuts and get to fill out from below some more. Give those plants some more attention when it's time to move them inside. I am concerned about the laurel hedge this winter. I don't know how it's going to do. I'm not going to spend a ton of time worrying about it, but plants need to be watered well and healthy during the growing season to make it through the winter, especially when they're only marginally hardy. Despite me now being classified as a Zone 7, laurels typically die for pretty much everybody around here about every 5 to 10 years from a really hard frost, or, like last winter where we had 2 weeks below -10. It's just that lack of rain. There's a sprinkler over here, and I tried watering them. I fertilized them, I composted them, and did a nice soil amendment in the late winter, early spring for them. But they just have looked wilty pretty much all summer. At least this one has, and one that's down there towards the other end, no matter how much water I've been giving them. And I've checked the soil. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of rot. I think it's just this is a berm and it's raised up and the air is bone dry and we haven't had rain. So I don't know, probably should have mulched heavier. A heavier heavier mulch would have helped hold the hydration in better for those. That's the only thing I could think of that I could have changed. I wouldn't have wanted to water them any more than I already was, because then you run the risk of them rotting out. That's what I'm saying here, is that them going into the winter without being really healthy is not a good thing, especially this one right here. But I have the bags for them. I have the lights and everything to help get them through any extremely cold periods. It's just, they're not going to be as hardy when this is how they're looking, right? Plants need to be well hydrated moving into winter time. Dried up plants, they die a lot faster when you have hard freezes and just the drying winds. Those harsh winds, cold, dry air blowing on them all the time. It's very, very dry and windy here during the winter time, and that will desiccate them too. So I'll need to remember to hit them with an not antiperspirant, anti-transpirant. I said antiperspirant, to help prevent that, wind damage, wind burn, and just be ready to cover them up and hope for the best. I think that's about all I can do. And I need to order some mulch. I need to place an order and have some mulch dropped off and go really heavy on the mulch for the berm this year, because over here, there's a new path. I laid a new path. There's rock and everything under here because this whole thing's been washing out whenever we have storms, because my neighbors put in a pool, and now when it rains, everything floods over here. So I had to raise this up so things would stop washing out, and I put a bunch of rock and gravel under here and put in. Nobody cares. What I was talking about was that I have the backup hedge back here that got planted some last year and some this year, and it's the Hicksii yews. You can see this one was planted last year, has some winter damage on it. They're the Hicks, right? Not the Hilliite, yeah, the Hicks. Hicks yews. Wonderful yews, beautiful, upright habit, 10 feet high, 4 feet wide. They will survive the winters here, no problem. I was just hoping that I could get these to be 5, 6 feet tall, something like that, before we have a winter that kills the laurels off. I've basically just been preparing myself for the demise of the laurel hedge. And I don't know, even if they don't die off, at some point I've been thinking when these get big enough, I may end up pulling the laurels regardless, just because I'm tired of being nervous about them dying. No, I won't do that. They will stay here as long as they will grow here. But the backup hedge, it's not quite big enough to offer any privacy yet, but it's better than nothing. And that goes back to the mulching. This all needs a heavy mulch anyways, because I think I planted 11 more of these, so 11 of these are new. They need the mulch regardless, but you can see it's a berm. You can see where the soil erodes and everything, so need to make sure that I give this berm a lot of mulch this year. Really help protect the roots on everything, hold some moisture in, and it won't make a difference yet, but once these yews get bigger, once they're probably, I'd say, I don't know, 4 feet tall, something like that. I mean, this is going to help as it is, but once they're a little bit taller, they may help provide some winter protection for the laurels too. It's just the winter winds generally blowing from the other side, but it helps, right? Having other evergreens planted around them, it should make some kind of difference. Oh, look at you. Look at you in all your glory, my Prince of Orange. This is what it was sold to me as anyways. Getting more and more red the bigger it gets. The other acanthus, this one has been an anomaly. I don't understand how it's still flowering, but it is. Typically they're done flowering months ago, but this one right here, I don't know. It's just loving life, I suppose. This one hasn't done as much as far as the foliage is concerned, at least with the other oak leaves, but the flowering, it's been going all summer. None of the others have flowered. So I guess that this spot has the best light for flowering, but not the best for the foliage. Or maybe it's just the ground over here has been more nutritious. I don't know. Going to be interesting to see how that survives the winter, how all of them survive the winter. I hope they all make it. That's why I spread them throughout the garden. I have the one over here and the 2 that you just saw, and then there's some over in the new shade garden that got put in this year. Yeah, but you can see when we go to the shade garden, you'll see a difference between the foliage on this one versus all the other ones. This one's looking like it might have some more spinosa in it or something like that, which it shouldn't, because the oak leaf is a mollis, acanthus mollis, M-O-L-L-I-S. But I don't know, those leaves look different than the other ones do. Planted a whole bunch of new yews back here, just like I did on the other side that I was just showing you. Have 3 right here, then it stops, have this Pragens viburnum right there. Then there are 1, 2, 3 more, and it's a little uneven because, well, the landscaping's uneven up here because they have the Pragens viburnum right there, another one right there, so I just sort of went with 3 and then another 3. I feel like these 3 are spaced out further than those 3, but that's okay, it's fine. You can't really tell because you have the big evergreen right here in front of everything. These viburnums hadn't done much growing for me over the last few years, and then I went ahead and I put in a drip in this spot this year, and lo and behold, lots of growth. It's also, I think, their 3rd or 4th year in the ground, so it was time for them to start growing, but I didn't get that drip set up until, what, July or August, and they had just been sitting still, and once that got going, started to get some growth, finally. I've wanted some nice big viburnums over in this spot because they're evergreen. They have a unique leaf on them, I think, compared to a lot of the other evergreens that grow around here. And I need to get out of here, gonna get wet. They smell nice. I just like the flowers. Oh, getting wet. So I'm happy that those are doing so well. Something else you can see that you haven't been able to see that well this year because of the adenidias that were over here, the Borneo giant alocaceas. Look at them. Aren't they just glorious? Huge. We had some frost and that did some damage to some of the foliage, which you can kind of see over here, right? A little bit of frost damage, but they're still putting up new growth. And it's almost November. What is this? What is this life? I'm not familiar with this at all. They got so big, I have to dig them up, right? I can't just let these die back. It's, again, going to come back to what I was talking about with the other one, where it's going to be a time will tell, because I don't want to dig them up until I have to. But I also don't want to leave them out here to die back when we have an unexpected frost or hard freeze, I should say. So I need to figure that out. Ideally, what I would do is come in here, cut off pretty much all the foliage, dig them up, lift them, try and knock as much mud out of the root ball as I can, and then pop them into a container and just keep them out here growing on the ground. And then when we have a hard freeze, move them inside to the grow space. But I'm probably going to cold store these, not all winter long, but just for a few months, and then get them potted up sometime late winter into early spring and let them start off in the grow space. Because my experience with overwintering these big alocaceas has been that they'll do well in the grow space, actually. They tend to get a little bit more long and lanky, but that's to be expected, right? Because they're indoors and they're alocaceas. You can only give them so much light and so much airflow to keep their growth nice and sturdy and stiff. But what ends up happening is when I move them outside, no matter how gentle the transition I try and make it, they get really flippity and floppity, and they end up losing most of their leaves anyways and have to start all over again. So my main thing is maintaining the main growing stock on those and the roots. And they desiccate a little bit, that's okay. I just think that with this much size on them, it would be a shame to let them die back, right? They're so freaking big. They're beasts. This fence back here is 5.5 feet. and they're going, that one's a little bit shorter. This one's probably a good 4 or 5 feet above that fence. But I would say this one might be pushing 9-10 feet right here. That one right there is probably 8.5, 9 foot, something like that. But you know, if you're up there, if I'm up there, I'm 5'11", those things are towering above me. They'd be even bigger next year. I mean, that leaf, look at that leaf. Look at how beautiful that is. Absolutely stunning. And that leaf, that's practically the size of the hood of my car. Yeah, that's the end of that thinking out loud process there. Sorry about that. But you don't usually get a view of them that's quite this nice. I see I have an orchid over there that I need to pick up, but I think I'll just wait. Don't really want to get wet while I have the camera going. The junipers that are over here, they also need to be backfilled. I know I said that this one is dying or dead, or it's just, I think it's just some burn on it from the drought that we had. I'm gonna leave it. I don't want to go buy 1, 2, 3, 4 new plants that I have matching perennials around here. Hopefully it just holds on to whatever green it has left on it for the majority of the winter time and stays looking fine. I think having them backfilled will help, and getting them up on drip has helped a lot too. That one over there is on drip. They're both on drip, but since I got that one on drip, it has actually started to look better. But some of that foliage that's on here, again, real close, that stuff right there, that's not going to rebound, right? It's only the stuff that still has some softness to it, where you can touch it and actually still feel some oils in the plant. Those will be okay. Wherever it's dried up like that, I really will probably need to come in there and prune all that out in the springtime, and it should regrow. It's not dead, it was dying, but it's not dead, it was just dying. Yeah, this spot, I think it's still looking pretty good, just out of order, out of sight. Unsightly, that's the word, unsightly, because, you know, wind and stuff, but it still looks good, especially with all the impatiens up there, right? So much color. I love all those impatiens. Cannot believe that it's basically November. That could be the title of this video. It's basically November. Hedychium's looking good. I still need to dig this one up out of its container. I want to bring this one inside for the winter because it has such nice, unusually large, big petal-like foliage. Not used to that on the Alpinias. Not until they get to be really, really big. That one, it started doing that when it was only like 2 feet tall. The bamboo that are over here, these were suffering. They were on the struggle bus. I could not keep them watered, got them put up on drip, and here we are like a week later, and they're looking much, much, much better. I am thinking that I might be getting rid of the bamboo next year, or pulling them and moving them to somewhere in the garden with a bamboo barrier, just because I don't know, I'm not as crazy about how they look anymore. They've gotten kind of wild and unsightly, and they had a lot of die-off. I guess that's how I should start this. Last winter, they had a lot of die-off in the middle of their growth, so everything's on the outside, and that doesn't look so good. So I'm either gonna need to pull them, divide them up, and fix them up, or just pull them, put them in the garden, and try something else over here. I don't know what, but something. The Dracaena looks like it has some stuff dying off on it, but overall, this thing has just been great this year. It might be a little wonky. I think that's just the pot. This got repotted in the springtime, and it's been loving life ever since. I love that plant. I have another Reflexa Dracaena over there I need to get repotted too. Forgot about that. There's a type of Thuja, an arb called Sting, that I'm trying to find. I really hope that I can track one of those down at the nurseries sometime in the next few weeks. Inventory is pretty low at a lot of them. If not, then I can order them. The problem is when you order them, you can only get them in a 2 or 3 gallon pot, or a 1 gallon, but I'm hoping to find something more like a 7, since it's already a few feet tall. But here's the deal, the Stings, these are really cool because they're stupid. They're just ridiculous. They're so ridiculous that I really want them. They only get about 12 to 18 inches wide and 20 feet tall. Like, it's just a big green pole. And every time I see the pictures of them, I'm just like, why? Why does this even exist? That looks so dumb. And I also really want one, or 4, because I think 1 on each side of the gate, maybe 1 over here in the corner, growing up right there, maybe. I don't think there's room, but maybe 1 over there, or 1 over here on that side of the house. Just big green stupid poles. Those are plants I'm on the lookout for this fall. Rostrata's looking good. Gotten lots of good growth out of it. This one had a big cutback in the springtime, had some root rot. It's got pretty cold. And so I cut it back, put it in a small pot with basically just gravel as its growing media, and it's been doing well. I blended the gravel with the, I don't know what it's called. Can't remember. Fluval stratum. That's what it's called. It's an aquatic gravel for growing plants in your fish tanks. Just put a little bit of that in there so there'd be some nutrient, but it's still nice and airy for it. And it's loving it. Look at how big that crown is. Nice and thick. Lost a couple feet of trunk, but that's okay. I'm just glad that it's still alive. What's left? Oh yeah, okay, the shade garden. Started to talk about this earlier, but when I came over here, the neighbor was outside and I freaked out and panicked and pretended I was just picking up leaves and I ran away. It's looking okay. Things have been so dry. I'm watering as much as I can. The Hakanakloa was looking great until about 2 weeks ago, and the frost hit it back, and now it just looks dry, and I don't know why, because I did water very heavily, and I mean, there's a fern over there that's somewhat died down, I think, from the frost, but they don't look like these. I think they'll still be okay. I just really need to, I guess, give a lot of extra water, because clearly it hasn't been enough. But otherwise, everything over here has been good. It's not a lot to say about it, because it's only been in the ground for a few months, right? This is all new stuff over here, so it's going to take some time to get to see much out of everything, but I'm excited about it. Things are still looking pretty good. The begonia that I put over here was a hardy begonia. It disappeared. I had it right over here behind this typhonium, and it's just, I don't know, it's gone. I don't know where it went. Oh my God, that scared I thought that I stepped on this and it moved up, this piece of sprinkler right here. Jumped out of my skin, thought it was a snake, which wouldn't have been that big of a deal. Actually, would have been pretty excited. I don't mind snakes. They're pretty good to have around, but never seen a snake back here. The spurge. Always forget to talk about it. It started to do some spreading, and then it stopped because things have been too dry even for the sedum. This is a Pachysandra. I really like the variegation on it. Can't remember the name. It says Silver Edge, Japanese spurge. Yeah, that's how you know things have been dry, when even the spurge is all crispy. And this is, I've been hitting it with the hose, just clearly not enough. What's weird is that out of all things, the typhonium, which love water, looking great. This one looks better than any of the other ones that I've had around the garden, and it's one of the newest ones too. I have one that I've had around for like 10 years. It's never filled out this nicely. It has some dieback on it, but look at how much it already spread. This was one plant. It was just a bulb, actually, when I planted it. And we got a new growth right here and right here. I bet this is going to fill in this space very nicely. So earlier when I was, what was I talking about? The Pharaoh's Mask, Colocasia. And I said that I think that that's probably the most tropical looking leaf you can have on a cold hardy plant. I think that award actually might go to this one. I mean, come on, how tropical is that? Look at how deep the sinus is on it. But the difference is this doesn't come up and out of the ground until like June to July. This year it wasn't until late July. So that's not as great, right? You have to wait until nearly the end of summer or midsummer really to start to see anything out of them. But I say the wait is well worth it, especially just imagine a few years, all these really big aroidy leaves filling in the spot. Not aroidy, it is an aroid, but that's going to look really nice, especially with the toad lily and then the voodoo lilies in the background that haven't come up yet. Here's one of the other acanthus. So compare that to the others that you saw. Nice and wide, not much smaller than the one that was $80 or $90, right? Not that much smaller at all. Especially this one. This one right here is yeah, I would say if you get those ones that are a number 1 or a number 2 pot, they're really only going to be about a year behind the ones that are $90. So that's up to everybody what you decide to do with that. But if it were me and I were planting a bunch of them, I just get the little ones. They're vigorous. And acanthus, once they establish, they are plants that will stick around for a very long time. They can be very, very, very long-lived. The podophyllums, they started to die back. It's just, I guess, their time and what they're doing right now. That's okay. The saxifraga, which is the strawberry begonia, starting to get some spreading out of it. Hasn't done much, but remember, these things were only planted in, what, late August, early September? So I wouldn't be expecting much out of any of these until next year. The Rhode, same thing. It's not doing anything. These are things that are all going to take some time. It's another nice look at the needle palms. Don't need to focus on them all that much because, well, they'll be out here all winter. Right, Turbs? How you doing? You being such a good boy. You're such a good boy, Turbo. This will be the last look at the beautiful dichondra. They did great. The one that's over there is basically dead. I haven't been watering that one because we had the frost and I thought that one over there was dead. And it turns out that I think it was just thirsty. But this one over here, still been staying on top of it. It's probably a good 6 or 7 feet of growth there. Love those. Almost said love how they came out. And I have to remember, I did not plant those. I bought them like this. Been thinking about maybe cutting them back and taking them in for the winter time. But I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Like I was saying with some of those other plants, it's going to be more about the moment. Don't really know what I'm going to do until we're in the moment. I know, you know, what's definitely going in, like the monstera and the palms and everything. But things like these dichondra, I don't know. They're just so big. They would have to be cut in half to take them in, which would be okay. It would save so much money not having to replant them next year. Because it looks like there's probably 4 or 5 of them in each one of those containers. So that's like $30 worth of annuals if you're doing the proven winners ones that are stupidly overpriced. Sorry, was that too direct? No, I'm not actually. I'm not sorry. Their stuff is too expensive. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. I just think that it would be nice to be able to recreate those, but also it might be cheaper to just try and hold on to them or to buy them from somebody else who's making them, because they're just so expensive, the proven winners annuals, that if I were to put 4 to 6 of those in each container, and then the Vinca, these Vinca, they were only $16.98 a piece. I don't think I can do that. I'm not gonna be able to pull that off on my own. Oh, is the canvas fully done now? I'd say that's done. Oh yeah, there it is. I could keep going and going and going, but y'all are gonna be seeing the tropicals once they get moved inside for sure. There'll be a much more time focus on them specifically. Oh, freckles. Love my frecks. So big and so healthy. And then as far as everything else goes that aren't the tropicals, it's hard to see them because they're buried behind the plants that are just waiting a couple of weeks to be moved inside. So the way things are looking over here right now, I've just kind of been like, whatever, because it's all going to change fairly soon. So I could keep rearranging and trying to tidy and make it all look good, but what's the point? I mean, I'm trying to keep it tidy, not like letting things get too messy over here. But as far as rearranging, making sure that there's proper height and levels and contrast and everything, why does it matter? It doesn't. In a couple weeks, all the tropicals will be gone, and we're going to be playing around with other things in this spot that will look nice to carry over into the springtime. I guess there's still a few things that we could talk about. Not Lespedeza. Who are you? Heptacodium. Temple of Bloom. Look at that. Isn't that so pretty? I love those flowers. Absolutely loving this plant. I am looking forward to this being a few feet taller because I think I talked about this in every garden tour. It's looking awkward in the spot. It's at an awkward height. I would like for it to get up another 2 or 3 feet high so I can thin out all the growth from probably right here and down, and then have the foliage up here. I want to train it basically into a crepe myrtle. This is my crepe myrtle dude, because you can't really grow big crepe myrtles here despite this now being zone 7. You have bedwinters, they die down to the ground. It's not often you get them much bigger than a few feet unless you have a nice warm spot for them. So this is the closest I can get as far as having something that looks like a crepe myrtle and is fuss-free. They hold on to their leaves for a lot of the winter too. They're not evergreen, but it takes them a long time to defoliate. And look, they're still nice and green, pretty dry, but those lovely curved up leaves, so pretty. Look at that. I think that just looks absolutely beautiful. Not quite as cool as it does on a crepe myrtle, but it's not a crepe myrtle. It's just something that I will be able to train into having that same vase shape with the long panicles of flower that are nowhere near as showy as a crepe myrtle. But it is fun having something out here that's flowering in November, right? You don't get that very often on many trees and shrubs. So everything else is done doing their thing except for the tropicals like the hibiscus and the gingers that are over here. But as far as trees and shrubs grow, I can't think of anything else for zone 6B, 7A that will go, 12 to 15 feet tall, potentially 20 feet tall. If you just have the regular Heptacodium, the Temple of Bloom, which is what this is, stays smaller. I think it's only supposed to go 10 to 15 feet. But if you have a true, just regular Heptacodium, you'll have a small tree that is covered in these flowers that the hummingbirds and the birds and butterflies, pollinators in general, but I have noticed the birds absolutely love this plant. There's almost always cardinals and finches hopping around inside here. I think they must be munching at the little dried up seed heads that are in here. I can't blame them. It looks nice and crunchy. Looks pretty good, and it's just fun. Flowers in November. And then up here, this one growth is doing something different from all the others, and it's making me wonder if it's a weed, but it's not. It's coming out from the plant, right? It's coming out from the plant, same leaves, but it has totally different flowers on it. What's going on there? Oh, that's right. Because the flowers have a... back that up. The flowers start off, I should have said this, with this kind of white poof ball sort of texture to them. Like that. And then they open up, and what you're seeing there is actually the pretty things that outline the flowers. My brain didn't work and we've been talking for too long. But the actual flowers themselves are not these. These are not the flowers. The flowers are the white poofs that are up there. And you can kind of see some of them in here. Oh, there's a honeybee up there on one of them. It's another great thing. Having something outside available for the pollinators this time of year, that's excellent. There aren't very many things that are doing that for them this time of year. Oh, the pindu. It's looking good. Not much else to say. I'm very happy with the growth I got out of this year, because it's been struggling for the last few years. This year, I set it in a spot where it's just kind of getting hit by the sprinklers, but not much. It's mostly being hand watered, and it's really hot right here. And I think that that's what it took, was just a lot of heat to get it up and moving and to not have water splashing in the ground and killing it. That's what ends up happening every year. Hydrangea trees. So last time, probably be able to see the underplantings on these. I think they came out beautifully. They're maxed out though, right? They're not going to keep doing much from this point on. Petunia Vista bubblegums on each side. And then my favorite are the Pakistakis Lydia. The lollipops, gold shrimp plants, whatever you want to call them. Fantastic. We'll be doing this again next year, and hopefully we'll be doing it sooner next year, so there will be even more growth out of them than this year. Because I don't think these got planted up until late June, early July, somewhere along those lines. Pretty late. You know, normally I try and have these things potted up in like May, even late April, if I can find all the plants. So they should be bigger next year. The Pakistakis, I may cut them back, and by cut them back, I mean like chop them down to being like maybe just nubs, lifting those and taking them inside for the winter, because they're typically pretty easy to keep alive during the winter time, especially in the grow space. Even in the house, they're not too bad. So it's something to think about. And there's still a little bit of color on that one panicle on that hydrangea. The rest of them, they all crisped out. It was just too dry. Not going to have any colorful dried hydrangeas this year. Not many. This one may end up having some color on it. That's 2 years in a row. I miss the years when these things would age out to that nice deep pink, like what you're seeing over here. It's a very mauve pink, and they would normally dry that color, but I don't know. It's not how things are going this year. Nobody's hydrangeas are looking good right now. You know, there's limelight hydrangeas all over the neighborhood, and they're all of them are looking like this, all browned up. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to dry many of these. I only say that. I don't think I even talk about this. I do usually, if they hold some color, like to cut them and let them dry and stick them in a vase. They last for years. If you dry them, the color stays really nice. But, well, you know, you can't do that with the ones that look like a burnt marshmallow. Now, I didn't care for the Adenidia palm that was over here. I talked about that all summer. I just did. It's not that I didn't like it in that spot. I just didn't like that palm tree specifically. But I've been thinking maybe, I keep thinking the wind's going to stop. It's not stopping. But it might be nice to have some sort of other evergreen in that spot, which might be a good spot for one of those staying arbs. Only 18 inches wide, but up to 20 feet tall. It'll look stupid, but it might work there. Yeah, things are a mess right now. That's just the way it's going to be for a couple of weeks, because right now I'm mostly just tending to the tropicals and, well, watering. That's all I'm doing. I say that in every video. I'm so sick of watering. I've never had to water this much before in my life. I don't know how people who live in dry climates do this. It's insane, the amount of time I'm out here with the hose. And that's with drip irrigation and sprinklers. You saw some of the plants, despite the hand watering. That's not always enough. So I'm actually, I think I'm ready. I'm ready to move the plants inside. They're much easier to take care of inside. I don't have to water them anywhere near as often in the grow space. And I would like to get back to doing some landscaping and some gardening and cleaning and clearing things out, getting the winter plants put over here. Like I said, probably that sugar and spice arb. I have the Fatsia japonica, maybe some acubas that can go over here, maybe a big bamboo. I may even just like get some big bamboo sticks and put those in the pot, because I think that would look cool over there. Just, I want some more height in this corner right here underneath that dichondrix. That dichondra is going to be gone in a few weeks, right? Well, once we have frost, that's not going to be there anymore. And then it's just going to bug me. I've gotten used to having these pillars here, and I want something right there. Right there. I'm going to think of something. Oh, I can finally have a look at some of the aspidistras that I got planted up in the springtime. I talked about these a ton, and then I stuck them back here in a corner where they're basically impossible for anybody to see because there's usually plants all over the place right behind this fountain. They did a little bit of growing. It's their first year in the ground. I want to say there were only 2 growths on that one, so it put up a little bit more. There's another one that I don't think you guys are going to be able to see. Can I get back there? Kind of, yeah. It's another one over here, looking pretty good. This is going to be a time will tell thing with those because they're not fully hardy here, at least as far as their foliage is concerned. Their roots, they're pretty hardy. So if we have a bad winter and they die back, which I imagine they will, because even the euonymus die back in that spot in the winter time, there will hopefully still be enough vigor, whatever, in those rhizomes to get them up and going again. In fact, I don't think I've updated on the other one that's over here either. This one right here, whose name escapes me, so this update's kind of pointless. I'm sure I have the tag somewhere over here. This is more of a designer variety. Where's your tag? Oh, is it down here? That's not where that's supposed to be. Is that for this one? Yeah, Aspidistra Snowcap. 7A and up. Need to get some actual plant tags to put out here. I want to get like a metal engraver so I can put actual signs up around some of these plants because the plastic ones just don't seem to last in the ground all that long. But back to the plant. That's what we were talking about here. This one, it had some die-off when I put it in the ground, and I think it only held on to 1 leaf, and it has started, as of a couple months ago, to put up some new ones, and it's been much more vigorous. I'm surprised, because usually when they're variegated, they're not as vigorous, but I'm getting these nice wide strappy leaves out of it. We've got 1, 2, 3 new ones. There's a 4th one down here, and the one that was remaining, I think I pulled that not long ago because it was pretty browned up and crispy. But the bigger this gets, the more color will be there, and they just have that really nice variegation right on the tip. So hopefully, in a few years, this will have filled out this spot, and the leaves will be standing upright, and you just see that little wisp of white above everything. That's going to look cool. Glad I remembered to update on that. I haven't talked about this one since I put it in the ground. Oh, and look who's finally blooming now that it's November. Begonia Pink Teardrops? I believe that's what this one is. The pink teardrops, hardy begonia, Begonia grandis. Just not enough sun over here for it. So this is another plant like the gingers, which are just a few feet away that I talked about earlier, that I think I'm going to need to move this next year because it took until November to get it up and going. And these can go, I think, 24 to 30 inches tall. So this is pretty small. This should be bigger than this. It's only maybe a foot tall and about 1.5 feet wide, so it didn't get as big this year as it did the year before. And it's starting to encroach on my favorite hosta down here, my Time Traveler hosta. Love this hosta. So regardless, I should probably move it. It's been a bit of a spreader. I've noticed that there are little bits, like just tiny little clumps of this begonia popping up all over the place in the garden down there, which is fine. If it wants to spread around, I'm okay with that. Maybe it'll land in a spot where it'll be more vigorous and happy. I'm just glad that I actually got some flowers on it. It's always good to see your plants complete their cycle for the year before they hit their dormancy. And wasn't sure if that one was going to do that. But I would like for that to hopefully have another week or 2 of decent weather so it can finish flowering and do whatever it needs to do. Oh, the Slim's Orange Hedychium. This was an experimental plant I got last year. Tossed them over here in this corner where I knew they would survive the winter just because I wanted to try them out. It's a Hedychium, which is these butterfly gingers. It stays much shorter than the others. Only goes about 3 feet tall. And I was thinking that would be good for some narrow beds and some narrow spots I have around. It's like obviously these flaming torches, they can't really go in narrow spots. They get huge. These go over 6 feet tall. Whereas the Slim's Orange, 3 feet tall. But look at how tiny and pathetic that inflorescence is. That's the flower. That's what it does. I don't think that that's worth keeping around, though. I'll probably be getting rid of those next year because, well, I'm not crazy about the growth on it. If it's just a matter of that growth, then I'll do the Zingiber myogas. They have a much more pretty foliage, I think, and they are fully hardy here. I don't have to worry about making sure they're mulched really heavily. With the Hedychium, if you don't have a good flower on you, I don't need you taking up space. It's taking up a lot of space over here. But it was nice having it around. It was good. I've been curious for years what that would be like in the garden, and now I know that it just, well, I mean, you can't compare it to the other Hedychiums, right? It's a totally different plant. And the flowers just aren't worth it as far as what that put up. Even if that flower were bigger, that's its first time flowering. So to be fair, it could have much better flowers in a few years from now. But even if that flower were the 6 to like 8 inch inflorescence that they can supposedly have, from what I've seen in the pictures, it's just really skinny and spindly, and it's not very showy. Whereas these flaming torches, you can't tell right now, they have a very showy flower on them. Okay, just had a bug fly right into my throat, and had to pause to cough and gag. We can get back here. You can kind of see that flower. None of them are really close enough to show you guys right now, but they're showy. The Slim's orange, not so much. That's why I'm thinking it's gonna go. Are you done, Turbo? He doesn't do this very often. He's like, can we go inside? I know, it's been almost an hour and a half. Been out here walking around talking about plants. I could do it all day, but I think that's about everything there is to talk about. Ooh, the Carolina Redbud, Sweetheart Caroline. Getting some nice fall color on it. Looks pretty good. Hopefully that has better variegation next year. The spring was so warm that it didn't have great color on it. Anyways, yeah, it's time to go. Hey, comment down below, say hi. I love talking to everybody. What's going on in your gardens? Is there anything going on in your gardens? Are you in a zone like I am, or a situation like I am, where you're just thrilled with this extra long fall that we're having? I love it. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm still out here swimming. Not right now, pool's full of leaves, but it doesn't feel like November, that's for sure. Also, I'm on a bit of a time crunch this week, and I made an extreme effort to not stumble on my words too much in this video so that I wouldn't have to cut things, or if I did stumble on my words, to just go with the flow and keep talking so that I wouldn't have so much time editing this video. Sorry about that. If there's some long awkward pauses or some things feel a little bit off, it's because I don't really have time to do much editing this week because there's just a lot of family stuff going on. All good things, but just busy. These videos can take a long time to edit, more so edit and get them uploaded. So that's what's going on there. You may not even notice a difference. I don't know. I did a pretty good job, I think, of being able to pull this off without having to make any cuts. It might seem like there's cuts, but that's because there's a pause button on the camera. So I can pause like this. Right now I'm going to pause, and then I can hit record again. And so that seems like a cut, but really it's just pausing and then resuming recording. I really like that feature, but sometimes it can drag on a little bit long. I'm just rambling. Okay. Hey, as I was saying, hope everybody's doing well, having a great day, great life, and everything's just going absolutely beautifully for you. Hope y'all enjoyed the last look of the messy garden for 2024. There's no way it's going to look like this come the end of November. I cannot imagine. I mean, maybe, but I would be very surprised. All right, as always, and most importantly, everybody, keep on growing. Bye-bye.